very quick, introduction to Nicholas. So today we're here with Nicholas King, and we're going to talk about, along with Olive Crest, we're going to talk about youth in foster care, risks, support, abuse. In this session, we're going to have a discussion on healthy relationships and why they are so vital to the well-being and mental health of individuals emotionally. Also, a discussion of how sex also a discussion of how sex trafficking is related to the foster care system and the risks that are involved for abused and neglected children. Thank you, Nicholas, for being here today on this lovely Friday. Thank you so much. And Alyssa Zubia is here also with Olive Crest, and they will be here to discuss this wonderful presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you for that introduction. Should I just get started or should I wait 2 more minutes?
Let's give it 2 more minutes.
Okay. Just give me the heads up when you're ready for me to go.
Perfect. We're down to 1 minute. Thank you. Okay, you're welcome to get started.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you all for having us. It's an honor and a privilege to be a part of this summit. And I was able to pop in a couple of times and hear some of the other things that have happened throughout the day. So it sounds like it's been a very educational and then I'm sure very emotional day as well, learning about all the things that you may not be aware of. So I'll get started by just doing a quick introduction of myself. I'm Nicholas King, but we're all friends now, so you can call me Nick. I made the mistake of not telling IT when they created my account to go with Nick instead of Nicholas. So the only person that ever used to call me Nicholas growing up was my mom when she was mad at me. So it took some time to get used to. But I've been with Olive Crest almost 4 years now. I'm the community involvement and development manager for Olive Crest. So I get to help. I'm like, in a lot of ways during Christmas time, I'm like Saint Nick. I get to like get all the Christmas presents for our youth, Easter baskets, backpacks. I get to have all our volunteers. I get to work with them in those different activities in terms of mentoring and tutoring. And then I also am in terms of fund development manager, I have stepped up and started doing a lot of fundraising efforts and working with a lot of corporations and churches. And I will let Alyssa introduce herself before I get started on my section of the presentation.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Zubia. I am the lead case manager for our transitional housing program for TAY foster youth, ages 18 to 21. I've been working here for just hit my 3-year mark. And yeah, I case manage kids. I do the intake process. I supervise the other case managers. Favorite part of the job is definitely working with my youth though, on one-on-one. So that's about me.
Thanks, Alyssa. Now, Alyssa, I get to work with her very closely. She's right across the hall from my office, so I get to see every day the lives that they're impacting with our 18 to 20-year-olds. So, okay, well, let's get the presentation started. So I think it would be helpful just so you guys have an overview of who Olive Crest is before I get started. So you're not just like, okay, that's great that they help, but how does Olive Crest, who is Olive Crest? So Our mission is dedicated to preventing child abuse, to treating and educating at-risk children, and to preserving the family one life at a time. So we really strongly believe that in terms of prevention is a huge component to making sure children never end up getting into the system, which I'll share in a second of why that's so important of them never getting into the system, and just making sure that they are in a loving home. And so we want to change the lives of as many children as possible, but we do that one life at a time. So our vision is a strong family for every child. So how do we prevent child abuse? We make sure we have a loving home and a strong family for every child that we bring into Olive Crest. Olive Crest has been around. Our 50-year mark will be in 3 more years. So we've been around for 47 years. We have offices in Los Angeles County, which is in Bellflower, Long Beach, and Glendale. And then we also have our national office, which is in Orange County, and then in the Santa Ana area. Then we also have the Pacific Northwest, which is up near Bellevue, Washington. We have the Inland Empire and the Palm Desert area in Riverside. And then lastly, we have our offices in Las Vegas, Nevada. So we're all about the same missions, values, and goals in terms of what we're trying to accomplish amongst all 5 regions. And so in LA County, though, alone, there are, it depends, some situations, at least with on the presentation, were about 34,000 children in the child welfare system right now. So it kind of fluctuates at times. Sometimes it's in the 30, a little bit lower in the 30 range. Sometimes it's as high as 35,000 children in the foster care system. It's the largest child welfare crisis in the entire nation. So you can take just the state of, or you can just take Los Angeles County, and they have more children in the child welfare system than any, than the rest of California does combined. You could take other states, New York, Texas, other huge states, and the entire states, even some of them combined, it doesn't equal the child welfare crisis that is taking place in LA County. So alarming statistics that go with child abuse is that in every 10 seconds, a child is reported abused. And the sad statistic with that is about 70% of those child abuse reports that happen every 10 seconds in our country, about 70% of them are not bad enough for them to go in the home and actually go in and see what's going on. Sometimes they're very subtle. And so there are other cases that are more, higher demand based on like maybe the things that are going in the home that were reported. So a lot of times they're not in the stages enough to where they actually go in and get checked into the home. So every day in our country, 5 children die from abuse, which is just a huge alarming pandemic that's happening just with children. It's sad to think that, children, are not being taken away by a disease, which is, can't at times be controlled. This can definitely be controlled. This is just neglect and abuse that are coming from parents. A lot of times while they're on substance abuse, but that is very alarming that about 1,500 to 2,000 children die annually just from negligence. It's a very huge and sad statistic. So what it ties to the child welfare system is it's not just what we're working with as children in foster care. It's also just in general those who have been in the system and then have been out of the system. And so a lot with the population that Alyssa works with, about 60% of the children that age out of the system will become homeless within the first year. So a lot of these youth are ones that haven't found their forever home when they never got officially adopted. And so a lot of them will become homeless because they would rather not have to go through the stress of being told what to do all the time, or feeling like they're not worth something. So they almost would prefer to be just individuals and become homeless. And so that's another very alarming statistic. And then lastly, 6 out of 10 children, so another 60% of children that are in human trafficking come from the child welfare system. As you can imagine, a lot of children that are caught up in the child welfare system have never felt love before, never felt cared for, and so a lot of times they're very easily able to be manipulated, and told, make them feel though as though they are, this is going to be a better life for them, when in all reality they are taking advantage of their situation. And so those are really alarming and sad statistics that I've just shared with you. And I think that kind of, as the best I can, paint the picture for you of a lot of the different populations that we're working with here at Olive Crest. And so I just want to kind of dive into how human trafficking ties to the foster care system. So children without families, to make them feel loved and cared for, are particularly vulnerable to exploitation by sex traffickers. So as I kind of mentioned just a couple minutes or a couple seconds ago, is that is kind of one of the big things and advantages that happen, is the children are so vulnerable that they have not been taken care of in the way. And so mindset wise, it's just very easy for them when you have even a stranger coming into their life, makes them feel like they're special. They can very easily exploit that in that youth. So foster children in large cities like Los Angeles are the most risk of being targeted. As you can imagine, we have LA International Airport. There's a lot of international travel that comes through. There's a lot of just the overall city, as I mentioned, with the 34,000 plus children in the foster care system. That number is so high. It's just a very easy city to target youth in. Many girls who end up leaving foster care are trafficked into prostitution, where they are routinely subject to physical abuse and violence. So, they do manipulate them and making them feel like they're loved when they first bring them in, and then they take that and manipulate them even further, where sometimes there's no way out. So they're routinely subject to that physical abuse and violence by the trafficker that has taken them. So how do we go about preventing human trafficking within Olive Crest? So what we do is we transform lives, and the way we do that is children and families in crisis. So we take a situation, for instance, abuse, neglect, isolation that is taking place in the home. This might be the story that always sticks out to me, as there's a voicemail I heard one time of the Department of Children and Family Services. You might hear that a lot. It's abbreviated as DCFS. The Department of Children and Family Services will call us looking for placements for foster children to put them in a loving home with foster parents. And so we will take that situation where we can then put them in that home, and that can avert that crisis, which then brings us to the next stage of a loving home, which is safety, belonging, and stability. So when we're able to place them into that loving home, so another example, which I'm going to show you a video on, actually, I'll kind of go back, I'll show the video and then I can kind of go through the steps of this again, just to kind of show you once you kind of see the video. But in this case, the child was called by the Department of Children and Family Services because mom was beating him with a switch cable. And that voicemail is just kind of gave me goosebumps when I heard it. It's just sad to think that someone would do that to their own child. And so that child now needs to be in a place where they can be in that loving home. And so we will then put them into a foster home where the foster parents will then bring that loving home for them. And then from there, we can offer tools for success. So that might be therapy or counseling from the trauma or the potential abuse, or maybe they have anger management or whatever it might be, mental health and services for them. We have case managers that provide support to the family. And then we also, like in my role for this, which I get to help a lot in, is providing, Easter baskets or for the family, so that, the child might have never received an Easter basket. This might be the first Easter basket this child's ever received. And in Alyssa's case, there's life skills classes that she teaches with her 18 to 20-year-olds. We work with newborns all the way to 20 years old. And a lot of the youth that are in the 18 to 20 program have never opened a banking account before. Some of them never even done laundry before. Some of them think, eating Hot Pockets for breakfast, lunch, and dinner is an okay, healthy eating lifestyle. And so we go through and give all those tools for success. Not only that, but also within our wraparound program, we have parent partners that work with the parents to make sure the parents are staying on top, whether they make sure that they don't relapse, or it might be in the case that they continue to work together to give the best life for the parent if the parent has been reunified with the child. And then once an Olive Crest family, always an Olive Crest family. So we want to make them feel like they have the security and confidence that they need to succeed. And so whether that might be, somebody gets pregnant in the home and they need help, and we will still provide them with diapers and cribs, just because they're no longer maybe receiving services through Olive Crest, we will make sure that we are doing everything that we can to still provide resources for the family in need. Okay, so our programs are foster, which I just kind of went into. We also have adoption, promotions, and supportive services. And so these are post-adoption services that take place within our offices. So just because the child's been adopted now doesn't mean that they don't still need those mental health services and that. So and also that we also provide parenting classes in English and Spanish for the parents as support groups as well. Wraparound and mental health I've kind of also gone into. We have child family specialists that work directly with the parents, with the child, and then parent partners that work directly with the child, with the parents. Sorry, I keep reversing that. And so they work directly with them, and then we have clinicians, and basically we're just wrapping around that family to provide them support. We are very big in prevention within our Family Resource Center and Safe Families. Family Resource Center will provide not just for within our tutoring program for the youth that we serve, but if we have extra resources, we will open that up to the community. So that could be other homeless shelters, that could be domestic violence shelters, that could be human trafficking agencies. We will provide resources to our community partners as much as we possibly can, because everything that we can do to prevent children from getting into the system can prevent more children from becoming homeless, from more children being in criminal stages, and also preventing them from ever getting caught up in the world of human trafficking. So we also do that through Safe Families, which is, say mom is going through a domestic violence situation, trying to get away from boyfriend or husband. She loves her children, she wants to keep them safe, but she just doesn't have the ability or resources to live on her own. So what she will do then is she can then call our Safe Families hotline, get the family, which is volunteers. They're not actual foster parents, they're volunteers who take the children into the home. They provide them with safety, and basically the mom will be like, I need 3 weeks to get on my feet, because a lot of times children will get put into the system based on poverty. They may get caught up into the human trafficking in that world as well too, is because they're going from being in a loving home with their mom who loves them, but because they're living out of their car, because of poverty, she is taken away from there. And then within our transitional housing program, these are children who are out of the system that I've kind of touched on a lot with our 18 to 20-year-olds. We're trying to give them success. They do need to be working full-time or part-time, but we're giving them the tools to be individuals in our society once they become 21 and age out of the system. So hopefully giving them the resource in life that possibly that they didn't have growing up going through the foster care system. And then lastly, we have community engagement, which goes deeper with churches and getting churches to provide those support as well too. So our vision by 2030 is that church partners will be really able, and there's almost a church on every corner in Los Angeles, to step up and really take on a lot of the need within the child welfare system. So I'm going to show a video of our Safe Families program just to kind of show you what that prevention looks like, of how we're preventing children from getting into the system, which just all eventually ties back to also preventing them from being homeless or being a part of the human trafficking. So I'm going to share that video with you guys right now.
Nick, I don't think the sound is coming through.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think the sound is coming through. Let me see. I think I need to share my audio maybe.
Yeah, Nick, when you share your screen, there's an option to share your audio as well.
Okay, let me stop share and then let me reshare screen. And then where do I do the audio? Oh, here it is. Multiple participants can, one participant advanced sharing options.
When you click share screen, it should be a little checkbox at the bottom that says like share my audio as well.
Oh, here it is. Yep, here it is. I see it. Okay, got it. Got it. Okay, here we go. I will restart the video.
Eat the berry.
Bless the food. And these thy gifts. Xander, Joseph.
Blessing from Adam
Joseph.
to Christ our Lord.
Amen. We tried.
I have 4 boys, and they are the goofiest, funniest, smartest. They love playing with each other and also irritating each other. Just like with me, they love me so much, but then they also like making me cry. As a girl growing up, I was always like, you know, I just like things quiet. I don't like to be loud, but they're just like really loud. Their names are Anthony, Alexander, Joseph, and Joshua. My marriage was abusive. It's still hard for me to say that. I was in an abusive marriage. And it's so painful to say that out loud. I don't know why. When I finally let go of the broken marriage and the family that I was holding on to so tight, I fell into a depression. I had a mental breakdown. I had lost my job that I had got, and I was trying to do my best to care for the kids, but I couldn't even care for myself at that time. And so I reached out for help from Safe Families because my kids deserved better than what I could offer at that time.
Safe Families is aimed at being a support for parents who are in need. When families are feeling helpless in any way, they reach out to families like myself who have opened up their doors to welcome in their children and work alongside you and partner with you to make sure that your children have everything they need. I was at church and they were talking about a new ministry they were starting called Safe Families, and I went to the meeting with my husband, and the model of it is so easy. The way you take in the families and the support you have through the church and through the people who work at Safe Families. The church also supported by finding volunteers, anyone to donate clothing or anything that I would need for the boys. I have 3 older children, 2 girls and a boy. My husband, Rob, is so supportive. Whenever I needed support, they were the first ones to say, no, I'll get that, I'll go, I'll take them outside, I'll play with them. They just kind of involve them in their day-to-day routine. When you host children through Safe Families, they feel like they're your own family.
I am just so grateful that my boys have someone else who thinks they're so interesting as well. And that's who they are. They are a group of amazing Christian families who just want to support those parents who need a little bit of a push up, a little bit of a hand up.
God brings people together for different reasons, and Kristen and I were supposed to meet on this life journey, and
Those boys, I think, just opened up our family to realizing that blessings come in different forms. As much as Kristen may feel that I gave to her, I feel she and her boys have blessed us.
Okay, get out of this. Okay. Alrighty, and so that's I will have some other things I will talk about, but I'm going to pass it on to Alyssa now so she can go more into healthy relationships and mental health and consent. And take it away, Alyssa.
Thank you, Nick. Well, first, I just want to start off by saying, in no way am I an expert in healthy relationships and mental health and consent. I do teach, well, try to teach my current youth, my 18 to 21-year-olds, about this because I do think it's super important for anybody, really. But I think I try to focus mostly on our young adults because I feel like that's when it's most impressionable. And that's when we tend to have like the most difficult relationships as a young adult. However, you can see from the video that there is no age. It does not discriminate against age. So I think it's really important to touch on healthy relationships in general, all throughout your life. And I just want to say that this is for any relationship. So yes, today I'm going to be focusing more on personal relationships, but this can go for family relationships, friends, coworkers. This can be applied in all aspects. Nick, if you want to go to the next slide. So these are some of the topics of discussion that I wanted to touch on today. Some things that I think are really important is determining or trying to understand what the characteristics of healthy and unhealthy relationships look like. So what does that look like to people? Sometimes a lot of people don't even realize that they're in an unhealthy relationship because, you know, they don't know any better, or you know, sometimes you just get caught up in that love or lust, whatever it is, and then, you know, it takes somebody from the outside to say, hey, that's not very healthy. So then I'm going to go into how relationships affect your mental health. And then what are consent and what is consent and what are methods of coercion that people tend to use. So we're hoping that today you leave here and you're able to identify some of those things. So first I want to start off by opening the floor if anybody feels comfortable to just say what are some characteristics of an unhealthy relationship, or if you guys feel more comfortable writing in the chat what you guys think some of the characteristics of an unhealthy relationship are.
Controlling behavior.
Absolutely. So that's when somebody is trying to control what you do. They're trying to, you know, manipulate you. That's a big one. Anybody else? So jealousy. Oh, go ahead. I heard somebody.
I was going to say, Alyssa, I think there's some in the chat.
Oh, sorry. I said to use the chat and then I didn't even check the chat. Okay. Possessiveness, isolation, volatility. So that's like when somebody's being possessive of you, they don't want you to have friends. They want to isolate you. No, don't hang out with your friends. Don't hang out with so-and-so. Controlling finances. So that's withholding money, saying like, no, I'm in control of the finances. I'll let you know what you can have. Gaslighting. This is what all the young kids are saying now. I just found out what this really meant. I'm embarrassed to say, like 2 weeks ago. But gaslighting, correct me if I'm wrong, is when somebody's trying to bring up an issue to you and you're making it seem like that's not true, which kind of essentially like puts it back on them and makes them like paranoid or think like, what? Jealousy, absolutely, when somebody is over jealous. So there's healthy jealousy, and then I think there's jealousy to the point where it's unhealthy. Any relationship that makes you feel unsafe. So if you're scared to even talk to your partner, if you're always wondering like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this, or if you're not feeling safe, your partner should be your safe space. Lack of communication, that is a big one. I feel like in order to have healthy relationship, you have to have good communication. So not giving space or privacy. This goes into checking the phone logs, always wanting to be with that person, which is understandable, but always individuality has to play a big part in relationships. When you're constantly blaming somebody and then saying, if you love me, then you'll do that. That is master manipulation. I do everything for you, always throwing what they do for you in your face and using it against you. Any type of manipulation, silent treatment. This is so popular. I know that sometimes we get in our feelings and then, we want to give somebody the silent treatment, or you're getting the silent treatment from your partner, but it's really just shutting them down or shutting you down. That is not good behavior. So awesome. Thank you guys. Threats of violence. Yes. Anytime that you're feeling threatened. Thank you. That was awesome. So I'm going to go into some of the things. Most of the time, unhealthy relationships, you see a trend. You see a trend of power and control. So this can look like anger and emotional abuse. So putting your partner down, making them feel badly about themselves. So that's like, oh, all you do is, sit around. I'm the one out working. That's not characteristics of a healthy relationship. Using your social status. So this can apply to either personal relationships or like, when a boss uses their social status to make you feel down about yourself or to, put you in your place. Intimidation. So making like someone afraid by looks or by telling them certain things. So I'm sure you guys have seen in movies, somebody will give them the look, and that's used to intimidate. So minimizing or denying any type of blame. I think this would be considered like gaslighting. Making threats of any nature, whether they're verbal, physical, sexual, you never want to make threats in a relationship. And then sexual coercion. So somebody mentioned this in the chat too. And this can look like, if you really love me, you'll do blank, blank, or blank, Isolation and exclusion. This is when your partner will start saying like, oh, I don't want you hanging out with so-and-so. They're not good for you, blah, blah. And in reality, they're just trying to kind of isolate you. And then you feel like your partner is the only one who's really looking out for you. And then there's peer pressure. So maybe exposing somebody's weakness, telling them, come on, just do this, blah, blah, blah. So those are some of the characteristics of an unhealthy relationship. Nick, you can go on down. I seen you moving. All right, now let's discuss what are some characteristics of a healthy relationship. What does a healthy relationship look like? I'm gonna have the chat open this time. Yes, trust. Trust is so important in any relationship. And sometimes it can be hard to build trust, but trust is basically gonna be your foundation of the relationship. Open communication. So important that you have trust and communication in your relationship, because communication is how you guys are gonna get through things in a healthy manner. Fun, always gotta have fun in a relationship. There's no point of having a relationship if it's always stressful, if you're always feeling down about yourself. Healthy conflict. You guys are able to speak, so it allows you to speak. You wanna make sure that your voice is being heard, that your feelings are being heard and validated by your partner. You guys are supporting and encouraging growth in your relationship, of course. respecting each other's space and boundaries. Super important that you guys are able to respect boundaries. And we'll get into boundaries a little bit later as well. Having vulnerability, that's really hard, but that one is important. Really hard to have vulnerability, but you know, if you want a good, healthy relationship, it has to be there. Respecting each other's opinion and making each other feel good. Awesome. So I think an important part of a relationship is also equality. So this doesn't necessarily mean you guys have to make the same or, you know, be at the same status. It means that you guys treat each other like you guys are both equal human beings. So when it comes to communication, negotiation, compromise, you guys will not always see eye to eye. You guys will have differing opinions. So it's super important that you guys are coming to compromise, to a compromise. Non-threatening behavior. So this means like what it says, no threatening, no making your partner feel unsafe. This also goes for threatening the relationship. I'm sure you guys have been or have heard of those relationships where they're constantly on and off. They're constantly like, you know what, I'm not going to be with you anymore. Constantly on and off. That's not healthy either. You guys shouldn't dangle a relationship like that. Having mutual respect is super important. Like respecting each other's opinions, space, everything. Having trust and support, holding yourself accountable. This also goes to the whole gaslighting thing, is sometimes accountability can look like an attack when really you're just saying, hey, this is how I feel. And then, you know, as a partner, you have to be able to validate those feelings. Even though you did not intend it that way, you have to hold yourself accountable. Responsible parenting, if you guys are parenting together, you know, making sure that you guys are showing each other the respect and having positive role models or being positive role models. That you guys have a shared responsibility. So you guys are not feeling like, hey, I'm doing more than so-and-so is doing. And economic partnership. So just making decisions together, making sure you guys are not, like somebody mentioned earlier, not withholding money and not saying, I'll give you money on my terms. Next slide, Nick. So the biggest thing is communication is key for a healthy relationship. Speak up when something's bothering you, making you uncomfortable. Hey, I don't like the way you do this. You have to be able to speak up. To me, one of the biggest, the key things in relationship is communication, and it's healthy communication. No low blows, no fighting dirty. It's being able to communicate your feelings in an effective way that they understand, but that you're also getting your point across, what you want them to understand. Respecting your partner. So this is understanding their feelings, validating them, and trying to compromise. So being supportive, so not putting each other down. A lot of times there'll be relationships that I see with my youth where they're like, oh, you don't do anything anyways, or, oh, you know, just putting their partner down, which is unhealthy because it weighs on your mental health. And then respecting each other's privacy. No taking those phones, looking through them. We're stopping all that unhealthy behavior this year. Respecting that people need time and space outside of the relationship. The relationship is not their whole world. Individuality is important. So now I'm going to get into a little bit about how healthy relationships healthy relationships affect your mental health. So healthy relationships, when they are healthy, can help our emotional well-being. They can help us feel stable in our life, help us feel like we have a stable partner. We're able to get through things together because now you have somebody you feel you can depend on. They help fight loneliness. Sometimes it can get lonely. Having those healthy relationships, whether it's with friends, with partners, whatever, it helps fight that loneliness. You feel like, okay, at least I have so-and-so on my side. It helps you become a better communicator. So when you communicate with your friend or with your partner, you learn like, okay, I can't tell my partner, he looks ugly in those shoes. I have to reword it in a different way, or I have to accept and, so it helps you become a better communicator and also a better listener. And then the most important thing is it teaches you how to trust and love others, which is really hard, especially if you've been in an unhealthy relationship. So being in a healthy one teaches you that you can learn to trust people and you can learn to love people. Unhealthy relationships and mental health. So some unhealthy relationships can lead to depression and anxiety. This is real. Being in an unhealthy relationship definitely messes not only with either like your physical, but it mostly messes with your emotional part of you, your mental health. So that's not good, right? So it can lead to trust issues. So once you have one unhealthy relationship, now you don't trust, whatever your partner was. And then it can lead to decrease in self-esteem, diagnose mental illness, and then trouble maintaining relationships because now you lack that trust that you need for relationships. And then lastly, it can lead to long-term trauma. So I'm gonna throw it back to Nick so that he can talk about how the brain development occurs and how trauma can affect your brain.
Thanks, Alyssa. And so, as you can see, most of the brain development occurs in the early years. So as you can see, by the time they're the age of 5, they've kind of hit their full brain development. And so, and it kind of stays steady all the way through until they're 25 years old. And so when you go into looking at how stress changes a child's brain, this is extreme neglect, as you can see on the right side. And then on the left side is a normal brain. So it triggers psychological changes in the brain when you are neglected as young because you're still developing. So this goes a lot to, why, children with in the child welfare system that have been abused or neglected might act differently. This can cause brain shrinkage to the memory and the learning behavior. We have a lot of youth that should be reading at a at a third grade level, and they're reading at a first grade level because they like the pictures. But it's because of how their brain has developed because of things that have happened, when they were growing up. And then greater risk of chronic disease and mental health problems in adulthood. As you can imagine, if you didn't have a normal, healthy brain development when you were growing up, the neglect in that can lead to you being a lot of other challenges and anxiety and depression and other things that can lead to that later on in life. And then lastly, this is what a healthy brain looks like on your left. And then this is on the right is what a abused brain looks like. So you can see, look at all that black in there. That this is a CET scan also, so you can kind of have an idea. But it basically, as you can see, the temporal lobes, and it just causes for a lot of issues later on in their life. And they'll suffer from a lot of emotional and cognitive problems later on in life as well. So I think it's just helpful to see that, like how much the brain is affected when it comes to neglect and abuse. And so I kind of wanted to show that when this can be the development that comes in a brain, no matter, in terms of when you're developing, you can still have these issues as you get into adulthood. If you've never faced abuse or neglect because you're in an unhealthy relationship now, that can cause for you to have trauma to occur to you, even though it's later on in life. So I will back it up to Alyssa again now to go into consent.
So with that being said, I know those pictures can look a little terrifying, but always remember that, the brain is an amazing part of your body. So you are able to rebuild some of those connections again. So don't think that just because you come from a trauma background that, I'm doomed for this life. No, you can absolutely still make that change. So we're gonna dive into consent. So I know this is a big thing. So important to talk about consent. So I wanna ask, what is consent? And consent, it's more than just permission. Consent is more than just permission. It should be enthusiastic. It should be, yes, I absolutely want to do this. Yes, let's do this. I had a cute little video, but we're doing it PDF, so we're going to skip that slide. I am going to talk about what the video is quickly, though, because we're running out of a little bit of time. The video basically talks about tea, and when you offer somebody tea being whatever you want, that they can say no at any time. Somebody can say, yes, I want tea, and then change their mind halfway through, and that's okay. And so that's what we want to talk about, that at any time, even if you've had tea multiple times with that person, if this time you don't want to have tea, then yes, that is okay. You can always say no. Consent should never feel like you should never be coerced into consent. So what does lack of consent look like? Lack of consent looks either verbal or non-verbal. This is super important. It can be verbal or non-verbal. So lack of consent can look like no, but it can also look like pushing away, crying, becoming disengaged. It does not always have to be verbal. Your consent could be nonverbal. So let's review some methods of coercion. So these are some things that sometimes people try to say, and this is called being coerced into giving your consent. So when people pressure and say, well, we've done it before, why can't we just do it again? You've already, done it. That does not mean that that person wants to keep doing it or wants to do it right now. Persuasion. I know you've been with lots of other people. That's manipulative. Blackmail. If you don't, I'll tell everyone that you are whatever. Power. You should be honored that I want to do this and that with you. Guilt. I gave up going out with my friends to come over here. Basically saying, I gave up, hanging out, and you're not gonna do this. And then lastly, making threats. If you don't, I can make your life miserable. All of those are coercions. So what should consent look like? It should be freely given. It should be reversible. Most important, reversible at any time. You may have said yes in the beginning, but then 2 minutes in, you're like, actually, I don't want to. It can be reversible at any time. It should be informed. You should know what you're consenting to. And then you should be enthusiastic. It shouldn't be a question of, if you're having to question it like that, maybe think twice and just err on the side of caution. And then it should be specific. You should be specific about what you're giving consent to. So remember, relationships that are not healthy are based on power and control, not equality and respect. So in order to have a healthy relationship, you should have equality and respect for each other. That is all I have for you guys today. I think we're gonna open it up. If you guys have any questions you wanna ask, remember, I'm not an expert. These are just things that I've learned and that I share with my youth.
Any questions for us? I think there's one here in the chat, Alyssa, that says these all count for other relationships as well, like friendships, parents, and children.
Yes, I did answer. Yes, absolutely. So in any relationship, you need good communication, everything that we talked about, that goes with any healthy relationship. Specifically in our field, I see a little bit more of unhealthy relationships between parents and children. And so these are things that I tell my youth, even, how to have a healthy relationship with their parents, with their mom, with their dad. how they can make a healthy relationship. Maybe they didn't have the best relationships growing up, but then how they can, circle back to that now that they're adults and have a more healthy relationship.
Best way to rebuild brain connections.
I think looking into therapy, but it doesn't have to be traditional therapy. I think the best way is expressive therapy. However you like to get your therapy in is how, so some of my kids do like expressive therapy, like theater, poems, rap, and then some do traditional therapy and find it helpful. I think talking through that trauma, talking through what you've been through is the best way to try to heal yourself and heal your brain, essentially.
Yeah, I'll answer this question. What does removing a child from a home look like? Where is the line? So a child, the circumstances, there's usually a report that is made, and it's usually within the county of what's taking place. And then there will be, gosh, I can't remember what they're called. Alyssa, like they would go into the home, not a case manager, a social service.
The ER social worker.
Yeah, the social worker will then go into the home, and then we'll do an investigation to find if there's any findings within this. And then that's when things can happen. So like, for instance, when I mentioned the switch cable, the kid had, marks all over his body. So it was very obvious. Sometimes it's things where you can tell, like the child has unexplained bruises on their arm, or the child, sometimes it could just be the child has unexplained, like they're very young and have unexplained like sexual knowledge that maybe a 7-year-old should not know about. So there's a lot of things that they'll interview when they go in the home. Depending upon, how obvious it is, there might be an additional investigation, or they might be on alert. And then when the child is removed from the home, that parent, depending upon if it's substance abuse, let's say it's neglect, then the parent would need to go through rehab or therapy by court mandate. And if they don't follow those steps, then they lose the parental rights, which then in cases would then be the foster parent would have the right to then have the parental rights of that child. So there's a lot of different ways, but in terms of how a child can be removed, but a lot of it is being reported first, and then the next steps are taken from there with the social workers. Any other questions? We're right at that 4:50 mark, so I want to be cautious. I know you guys, it's about a 15-minute presentation. So if there's no other questions, we just want to thank you for having us, and we hope this was beneficial and educational to you. And yeah, thank you again for having us.
That was great. Thank you so much. If you want to turn hosting back over to me, I guess.
Let's do it. There you go.
All right, if nobody has any other questions, thank you again so much for presenting for us tonight. And we just have one more session to round out the long day, but lots of information and lots of incredible attendees sticking with us for a good portion of the day. So thank you, everyone.
We did have a couple more. We have another.
Yeah, just saw that.
You talked about sexual, physical, but yes, of course, emotional abuse as well too. So yes, sexual, physical, and emotional. You could, child might be scared to go home. You can tell and things of that nature too. I don't know if you want to go off of that, Alyssa, if you have any input on emotional abuse. I feel like a lot of my knowledge is in sexual and physical, but I don't know if you have any input on emotional.
No, emotional abuse can occur in any type of relationship, whether you're talking to a partner or friends. It can look a lot like a manipulation or a lot like putting your partner down or your friend down. There's all types of emotional abuse. We can get all into it. Super unhealthy. You know, your partner, like I talked about earlier, should be there. Anybody, any relationship should be there to support you and to make you feel good about yourself. And so anytime that you're experiencing emotional abuse, where you're feeling down about yourself, where you're feeling not comfortable, you're feeling like, man, you know, maybe it's a parent who's always putting you down, you know, that's when I feel like you have to, if it's safe and if you feel comfortable, opening up that line of communication, you know, letting people know how what they're saying makes you feel. That's a big part. Sometimes, not saying all the time, sometimes it could be a case of, I didn't know what I was saying, like, you know, I didn't know you were taking it like that, or I didn't mean it like that. So it's always important to open up that line of communication so that you're getting your feelings out and that you're addressing, you know, how somebody is making you feel. Of course. Anything? Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys for sticking around. And I want to thank you guys for like actively participating. I didn't think anybody was going to be writing in the group chat. So, you know, that's what went over my head. But I do want to thank you guys for participating and being so interactive.
And, you know, we want to thank you so much for participating in this year's Safe Bay Consent Summit. You know, thank you to our presenters throughout the day. Like we said, we have one more actual presentation, and we just are so thrilled to have you both here. Did you drop your Instagram in the social media? Where do we follow you on social media? Let's just tell everybody.
It is, let me make sure I don't mess it up.
I can tell you, I got you, Nicholas. It's at @olive_crest. So go ahead and make sure you are following them on social media, as well as at @safe_bay to keep up with all the Safe Bay updates and all the fun things that we have doing. Shayelle, I want to ask you real quick. Do you want to tell them about the panties one more time? What we have going.
Wait, Nicholas, did you need to correct the social media? Was it messed up?
I just put it in the chat. It's dot. I might have sent it with an underscore. It's at olive.crest. I put it in the chat for everyone.
I want to give you a chance to correct that if we messed it up.
Sorry, that's what I had. Sorry about that.
It's getting late over here on the East Coast. So everybody, we're shifting gears in the next 5 minutes. We'll start our last session for today. But in the meantime, if you haven't checked out our Consent Panties Kickstarter line, please do. We'll put the link on the chat, and that's running for about 15 more days. So go check it out if you are interested in some very cute consent panties. And we'll be starting up the next session in just a few minutes. Michelle, we need to stop the recording.